Welcome back to Dropping Knowledge. Tonight, I want to talk about violent extremism and the gang connection. Gangs provide fertile grounds for recruitment by violent extremist organizations, not only among street gangs, but also within the corrections or prison setting. Just to put things in perspective a little bit, I want to start with some numbers, and I'm going to refer to my notes because I can't remember numbers like that. But according to the 2015 National Gang Threat Assessment, 26% of law enforcement agencies and 44% of jails that were surveyed reported gang members that were joining radical organizations. According to the 2013 National Gang Threat Assessment, 18% of the surveyed agencies reported gang members having ties to extremist organizations. In the Federal Bureau of Prisons, there are approximately 23,000 gang members. Currently, there are more domestic terrorists than international. And by 2023, give or take 100 convicted extremists, are expected to be released from prison. To bring it back a little bit closer to our home state of Florida, according to the 2014 Florida Gang Report, which there hasn't been a gang report done since, there are over 1,200 criminal gangs, documented gangs, over 33,200 documented gang members and associates. In Florida Department of Corrections, there are over 11,300 STG or Security Threat Group members and over 2,900 juveniles under DJJ supervision. Going back to the 33,200 and 11,300 numbers, there's going to be a little bit of double dipping, because some gang members may be documented by local law enforcement agencies, and then they will be documented by the Department of Corrections. So those numbers are going to fluctuate a little bit. Now, there's been a long history between criminal gangs and violent extremism, going back to the Avenues gangs in Los Angeles that had ties to the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party, in turn, in the late 60s, early 70s, had ties to the Symbionese Liberation Army and the Weather Underground, and also the Black Guerrilla family. More recently, in the 2020s, you have Ox City, which is a Muslim criminal gang out of Chicago, and their efforts to provide material support to ISIS. Now, in order to be an Ox City gang member, you have to be formerly a member of a criminal gang and have converted to Islam in order to be a member of Ox City. Back in the early 2000s, while we were targeting the Latin Kings, as we were executing search warrants, we started finding Qurans during the searches, which was interesting at the time, but we didn't really think too much of it at the time. Shortly after that, one of the local jails reported that a significant number of Latin King members were attending Muslim services within the jail. Now, just because they're attending Muslim services, that doesn't mean that they're radicalizing, but especially in the prison setting, it is worth paying attention to. Outside the prison setting, same thing. You have to do your due diligence in order to figure out if someone has been radicalized or not, just like you have to do your due diligence to properly document someone as a criminal gang member under Florida statute. But going back to the Latin Kings, Jose Padilla, also known as Abdullah al-Muhajir, which translates into Abdullah the Immigrant, when he was released from juvenile detention in Chicago, or the state of Illinois, in 1988, he was released from a juvenile conviction on robbery and murder. Shortly after that, after being released, he moved to South Florida, to Miami, eventually found himself back in prison, and he was exposed to Islam at that point, but he didn't convert. He didn't convert until after being released from Florida Department of Corrections. At some point, he started using the name Ibrahim, and eventually he just changed his name to Abdullah al-Muhajir. For those of you that don't know, Jose Padilla was later on arrested as being a material witness or being involved somehow with the 9/11 attacks. He actually traveled overseas. He went to Afghanistan to learn Arabic, and then later on he went to Pakistan to learn about explosives. His mission was to come back to the States and conduct operations on behalf of Al-Qaeda in the United States. Going back to the 1980s, then you had El-Rukn, which translates into the pillar or the foundation, which was founded by Jeff Fort. Jeff Fort also founded the Black Keystone Nation. Back in the 1980s, in the mid-80s, they attempted to purchase rocket launchers from who they thought were Libyan government operatives. It turned out that they were dealing with federal agents, and they were prosecuted. They were arrested and prosecuted for that. Then, fairly recently, you have white supremacist or racially motivated violent extremist white supremacist organization, the Base, which the Base actually translates, it's a loose translation of Al-Qaeda, and they have also adopted some of their language, imagery, propaganda, tactics. So you have the Base, and then you also have Atomwaffen, which in theory doesn't exist anymore because they changed their name to the National Socialist Order, but they have ties to the Russian imperialist movement. Now, the Russian imperialist movement has been designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the Department of State, which means that now white supremacist organizations here, which were considered to be domestic terrorists, now they have ties to international terrorists. One trend that we have seen is also blood gang members adopting the Moorish Science Temple ideology, and Crip gang members adopting the Black Hebrew Israelite ideology. A subject with ties to the Black Hebrew Israelite ideology conducted an attack, I want to say it was in 2019 or 2020, in New Jersey. During that attack, they murdered an officer that was conducting follow-up on a case, and eventually after that they stormed a Jewish deli and conducted an attack there. They later found explosives in their van outside. Also recently here in Florida, a subject with ties to the BHI ideology and black militias murdered a Central Florida law enforcement officer also. And also then you have Antifa, anarchists, and MS-13 that have been documented as traveling overseas and fighting with the YPG and the PKK. The PKK is actually a designated foreign terrorist organization by the Department of State. And that's all I wanted to share with you tonight. If you have any questions, please don't forget, you can always shoot me an email at inteltragru@gmail.com. And again, if you have any ideas for future topics, please feel free to reach out, send me an email, and I'll put it on my list of topics to discuss. Thank you and have a good night.